In the ongoing case of baby Emmanuel Haro, a new and unexpected piece of evidence has surfaced. Not a document, not a photo, but something far more powerful, an audio recording. In this short clip, you can hear Rebecca asking Jake, "Where were you when this happened?" And Jake responds, "I was at the park, bringing my son to football." Now, pause for a moment. That one exchange might sound ordinary on the surface, but when placed inside the puzzle of Emmanuel's disappearance, it changes everything. If Rebecca already knew Jake's location, why would she be asking him again? And even more puzzling, which son was Jake referring to? Emmanuel was only 7 months old, far too young for football. Before we go deeper, I want you to listen for yourself. Pay attention not just to the words, but the tone, the pauses, the way they speak. Sometimes the truth hides between the lines. Now let's listen to the audio. Please listen well. We also want to hear from you.
Imagine, I try to put myself in that. I'm like, I know they're up. We know they're up. They're not sleeping. We were up too. And we're just like,
we're exhausted.
I know, I bet.
Partially the move,
Where were you at when this happened?
I was at the park. I was at the park watching my son play football.
Kenzie?
So I had
And then I take the
Now you've heard it yourself. What do you think? Is this a simple conversation between two parents, or is it a carefully staged exchange to cover gaps in their story? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and let us know where you're watching from. This story has crossed counties, states, and even nations, and your voice is part of this investigation. First, let's look at the audio clip well. Let's start with the basics. The audio is short but powerful. Rebecca asks a direct question. "Where were you when this happened?" Jake responds with confidence. "I was at the park, bringing my son to football." Here's the problem. If both Jake and Rebecca had already stated they were together that day, why is she questioning him about where he was? That one detail suggests Rebecca herself may not have been entirely sure. Then we face the second issue, the mention of "my son." If Jake meant Emmanuel, the timeline collapses instantly because a 7-month-old cannot play football. That opens two possibilities. One, Jake was talking about another child. If that's true, then why has this not been clearly outlined in the case? Why has this other son not been publicly identified in relation to the timeline? 2. Jake was covering up. If no other child was at football that day, then this statement might be a way of diverting attention away from Emmanuel's actual whereabouts. To understand why the audio clip is shaking everything now, we need to carefully revisit those early days, when Emmanuel's name first came into the public eye. On August 14th, Rebecca Haro made a call that she said would change everything. Her child was missing. According to her account, she had been confronted in a parking lot, and in the chaos, Emmanuel was taken. Immediately, law enforcement treated it as an urgent case. Search teams mobilized, helicopters scanned overhead, and the community poured out to help. Neighbors who had never even met the family showed up with flashlights, water bottles, and determination in their hearts. For a brief moment, hope was alive. People believed they were looking for a safe recovery, but that hope began to dim when the details started to shift. Investigators reviewing surveillance footage quickly noticed that the timeline wasn't matching the story given. Pieces were missing, statements overlapped in confusing ways. Within days, the focus of the investigation moved from finding Emmanuel alive to uncovering what had really happened. The sense of urgency remained, but the goal had changed. Instead of a search and rescue, it was becoming a matter of uncovering the truth that seemed to be buried under inconsistencies. As investigators widened their search, they came across something unusual not far from the Haro residence. It wasn't a polished discovery, and it wasn't neatly documented at first. It was a ditch, a place that looked ordinary to passersby, but inside it contained fragments that could not be ignored. Among what was discovered were pieces of clothing and several tattered paper documents. Now, authorities have not confirmed that these clothes or papers belonged to Emmanuel, but the discovery raised immediate and difficult questions. Why would baby-sized clothing and scattered documents be discarded in such a way? Why were these items not in a safe, secure place within the home? Was someone trying to discard evidence, or were these items simply neglected? The ditch itself became a symbol of doubt. Even without confirmation that the items were directly linked to Emmanuel, their presence so close to the family's home deepened suspicions. Investigators took note. The community whispered. And this became another piece of the puzzle that didn't quite fit with the original story. From the earliest days, Jake's statements have been a web of contradictions. Each version of events he provided seemed to pull the case in a new direction. At one point, Jake suggested Emmanuel's remains could be found in a particular location, but when investigators searched, the claim collapsed. At another point, he stated that Emmanuel had been harmed accidentally in his sleep, a story that also failed to align with evidence. Contradictions like these aren't minor. In a court of law, they are devastating. They erode trust. They make jurors question credibility. They make the public wonder, if the truth is simple, why can't it be told the same way twice? And now, with this audio, another contradiction surfaces. Rebecca asks Jake where he was, implying uncertainty. Yet Jake responds confidently, claiming to be at a park with his son at football. Both statements cannot coexist without tension. If they were together, there would be no question. If Jake truly was at football with a child, why hasn't that detail been anchored firmly in the timeline from the start? Think of it like building a puzzle. Every piece must lock into place for the picture to emerge. But in the Haro case, the puzzle pieces don't fit. Each new piece seems cut from a different set, creating not clarity, but confusion. And confusion in criminal investigations often signals something more serious, the presence of hidden truths. To fully grasp why Jake's words are so heavily scrutinized, we must look at his history. Back in 2018, Jake was convicted on charges related to child cruelty. The details were disturbing enough that prosecutors recommended prison time, but the outcome was lighter: probation and community-based programs. He avoided the full weight of incarceration. Fast forward to 2023, and Jake once again stood before the legal system. This time, the sentence involved probation and work release rather than long-term imprisonment. Critics argue these lenient outcomes allowed him to remain in environments where children were present. Now, as Emmanuel's case unfolds, those past convictions return to the surface. When Jake speaks, people are not just hearing his words in the present, they are hearing echoes of his past. Every contradiction, every questionable statement is amplified by the shadow of his record. This raises a broader question, one that reaches beyond this single case. Should prior convictions carry more weight in determining future oversight? If stronger actions had been taken in 2018, could Emmanuel's case have been prevented? Or is it unfair to judge the present entirely by the past? These questions linger, and in the court of public opinion, Jake's past is not forgotten. It is part of the narrative, shaping how his words, especially the ones caught on audio, are interpreted. The Haro case has not remained confined to courtrooms and police files. It has spilled into the public square, igniting outrage, grief, and determination. Communities across Riverside County have held vigils. Posters of Emmanuel's face, bright-eyed and smiling, still hang on windows and church boards. Parents clutch their children a little tighter, asking themselves the same haunting question: how could this happen? On social media, the case has sparked debates that go beyond Emmanuel. People are asking about the system itself. Should background checks for guardians be stricter? Should repeat offenders lose custody rights faster? Should there be harsher penalties for those who endanger children? From these debates has risen a movement, sometimes called Emmanuel's Law. Supporters argue for stronger protections, stricter monitoring of individuals with past convictions, and faster intervention when warning signs appear. The audio clip has fueled this movement even more. People point to it as an example of how easily conflicting stories can confuse investigations. If accountability and oversight had been stronger, perhaps inconsistencies wouldn't be surfacing now, they would have been prevented altogether. Lawmakers are beginning to take notice. Local representatives have acknowledged the public's frustration. Advocacy groups are rallying, using Emmanuel's name as a symbol of change. And here's the most striking part. This movement isn't just about Emmanuel. It's about every child. It's about ensuring that future cases don't follow the same painful path. It's about creating systems where prevention is stronger than reaction. So, while the courtroom will focus on facts, evidence, and testimony, the public conversation is shifting toward reform. Emmanuel's story is no longer just one family's tragedy, it is becoming a national question. How do we protect the most vulnerable among us, and how do we ensure the system never fails them again?
And now we come full circle, back to the audio clip. Jake says, "I was at the park watching my son play football." Rebecca responds, "Where were you when I needed you?" These words may seem simple, but in the context of this case, they are explosive. They suggest distance where there should have been unity. They raise doubts where there should have been clarity. And they fuel speculation about whether the original story was ever complete. This isn't just about a private argument, it's about public accountability. In just 3 days, a court hearing will begin, one that may determine whether justice for Emmanuel is truly served. The stakes could not be higher. Will the truth come out in full? Will accountability finally be delivered? And will the system rise to the challenge of protecting the most vulnerable? We want to hear from you. What do you make of this audio? Do you believe Jake's words reveal a hidden truth? Or are they just another contradiction in a long list of inconsistencies? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe Emmanuel deserves justice, if you believe the truth must come out, make sure to subscribe, stay updated, and join this growing conversation. Because in just 3 days, the courtroom will speak. And this time, the world will be listening.